You listen to 247 Real Talk. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm your host, Julian Perry. I was about to say good evening because when I'm recording, it's Thursday, April 20th. It's just about 20 minutes after 9 p.m. I'm a little bit late in recording this week because this episode will air tomorrow morning, the 21st at 1 a.m. We'll go live. It's a pleasure to be here with you. This week, I'm going to talk about two, I don't know if I call them issues or two events that are in the news that I think we need to talk about. And we'll get into it as soon as I come right back. So welcome back to the 247 Real Talk podcast. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Since my last episode, I hope that you had a great week. Depending on where you are in the country, you're experiencing different types of weather, and then I guess around the world is the same. Here in New York, we had, I think it was last Thursday and Friday, we had 90 degrees. We broke two records, and we've been decent in the 50s and 60s, and I think tomorrow we're in the 70s and Saturday. So spring is in the air and it's getting warmer, and very soon you can shed the coats completely. I kind of wear a half coat because I leave, I'm up at 4 a.m. and so it's still, cool outside. So over this week, again, I'm going to try to keep it short. I usually say that and it goes a little longer than I expected or I want to, but then again, I have people who contact me and said, wish you'd gone on to, not cut it short so quickly, even after 30 minutes. But I do believe that it's important for us to discuss these things and these issues. And we are living in a time when one would think at 2023 that things are getting so much better. One would think that we have learned the lessons. We have gone through, slavery. We've gone through segregation. We've gone through, giving women's rights and minorities' rights. And, when you look at the evolution and the progress, you want to say that this is where we should be. But it seems like over the last few years, because of politics and everything else, we've taken a turn for the worse, where things that we really thought that we were making progress in are rearing their ugly heads all over the country. And when I think about the topics I'm going to discuss each week, I have things in mind that there's so many issues in the world and in our immediate society that I want to get to. I want to do some segments on kids and autism. I want to do some mental health segments. I want to do things that affect each and every one in our lives that people are dealing with schools and with services that are available and unavailable, and the needs we have for our society and our elderly. There's so many things to talk about, but it's hard to break away from, to get to those things when each week we have these atrocious things that happen. So I'm going to talk about two things in this short segment. The first one is the sheriff's office in McCurtain County, Oklahoma. As the story has it, and again, everything I say is alleged, right? No one is convicted. But as the story goes, someone recorded a conversation with the sheriff and two staffers talking about killing reporters and lynching black people. Now, I don't know if Oklahoma is a one-party state or a two-party state, and by that I mean in like New York, in a one-party state, as long as I'm part of a conversation, I can record you even if without your permission. In some states, you require the permission of both parties to record. I don't know what the laws are in Oklahoma, but the recording was made. And let's break this down. We'll do a quick breakdown of this. Understand the two things that I see stand out here, first of all. We have law enforcement, people who have taken an oath to protect and serve everyone in the community, having conversations about killing reporters and lynching black people. I would want to think that when you have someone in law enforcement who says that or does that, especially, when they got busted, they got recorded, right? You have to wonder about the oath that they took to protect and serve. Now, what's unique about this case is I think there were possibly two sheriffs or two people with badges. One resigned, one stepped down. But the second one is refusing so far to resign. Now, I don't know what kind of defense he's trying to mount, but here is what's really absurd. When pressure has been put on this sheriff to step down, his counteroffensive is to say, it is illegal to record my private conversation in Oklahoma, so maybe it is a two-party state. And he's going to find out who made the recording, and that person should be arrested and charged. So the person who made the recording, and understand what I'm saying to you here, I am not saying that if it is a two-party state, that what the person did to make the recording is not illegal, is not, a crime, is not something that they could be arrested for. But what I'm looking at is the sheriff is not defending what he said. He's saying that was a private conversation, and therefore they're going to look to prosecute the person who made the recording. He's not talking about the fact that he is a law enforcement officer who took an oath to protect and serve all people. He's not talking about the fact that you have minorities, black people, who will call for help, and him and his staff or whatever may respond to provide assistance. And if he responds to provide assistance and the caller is a black person or a reporter, either one, his feeling is they should be killed or lynched. It is unfortunate that we have things like, we need to have police departments, right? There's a lot of lawlessness in our land. They're good people, they're bad people. And it's unfortunate that in a body that is policing, forget about the individuals, in the concept of policing, what it's supposed to do or what it's supposed to mean, we have these individuals in every department, I think, that taint the entire body and turn society against it and turn minorities against it. As a minority, if I'm in a situation where I need help, I should not have to hesitate to call the police, right? If I'm a minority in a situation where I am licensed to carry a firearm, for instance, and something has happened and I have to call 911 for help, I should not have to worry, well, when they show up and they see me and they find out whether I declared or whatever that I have a firearm, what the response will be because I'm a person of color. We've seen videos from all over the country where people who are, people of color, how people respond to them, how law enforcement responds to them versus people, versus whites, versus Caucasians. And my point I'm making is, if you are a part of that county, McCurtain County in Oklahoma, and you hear this alleged situation or reports of this alleged situation, I'm making sure I say alleged because it is the fair and right thing to do, because we don't know what the final outcome is and what will come out in testimony and all of those things if it ever gets there. But the point is, how do I feel as a minority in that county knowing the next time I pick up the phone for 911 and I call, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if the excuse is going to be that, I had a brush in my hand or a cell phone and, he had a gun and they shot me, just because if someone at that level of law enforcement ever responds to help someone or intention of helping that someone is a minority, if they're inherent, those feelings inherent in them are feelings of hatred, such that you were talking about lynching, then what should I expect from them when I need help? I talked a bit about the law. I think it was last year that was passed at the federal level that categorized lynching as a federal hate crime. So someone to even speak of that now, they're speaking about whether it be fantasy or whatever of carrying out a federal hate crime. So when it comes from a law enforcement officer, do we say that is equal to someone telling someone else they're going to do them bodily harm? That's considered a threat, right? But none of this is is the focus of this sheriff. Is not apologizing, is not explaining, is not stepping down. All we're hearing is they're going after whoever made the recording that it was illegal and they should be arrested and prosecuted. What's even worse is here we go again. Where is the outrage? This is not a hidden story. While some of you may be hearing this story for the first time from my podcast, this was in the news. New York Times, CNN, every major breaking news has this story. Where's the outrage? Where are the press conferences in Washington, D.C.? Our politicians. Where are they standing united, Republican and Democrat, on the floor of the House and the Senate condemning such an action? And promising, as people we elected to protect and serve us by the people for the people, that they will use every tool within their power to make sure that justice is served, not calling anybody guilty or innocent, just saying, where is the outrage? It's amazing that people can run around and want to kill each other for the color of their skin. When we see an injustice like this in front of their faces, those same people will rationalize somehow that this was okay. And in saying that, that allows me a great segue to the second story for this podcast. And it's around a 16-year-old kid named Ralph Yarl. I think he's in Kansas City, Missouri. I think so. I guess that's where yeah, Kansas City. Ralph is 16 years old. Ralph is a responsible young man who's in the music, musician at some level, who goes to school, who takes on the responsibility of his younger siblings. So apparently on this day, Ralph went to pick up his siblings and he mixed up street and drive, something like that. I mean, if you drive around New York, you'll see the same street. I'm just picking a number up my head now, like 117 Street in Queens, you might see 117 Street, 117 Drive, 117 Place. So he mixed up the street and drive, I think, were the two things he mixed up. Got the number of the house right and pulled up to the house to go get his siblings. I guess they were at the babysitter or someone was taking care of him. He walks up to the door. Now, again, everything's alleged because there has been an arrest and charges in this case. And so, I don't want to preempt anything. It has to go to court. We have to hear all the facts. But I'm going to give you the two sides of the story now, and I'm going to leave it to you to decide. Ralph's story is he mixed up the street. He was on the right street, but the wrong name, right? Drive versus court or whatever, or street versus drive. He walks up to this door that apparently has a glass, like a screen door. And as he walks up to it, his door, boom, he gets shot in the head. Now, I'm very familiar with firearms. As I mentioned before, I've done competition shooting. I'm a firearm instructor. I'm a range safety officer, so I'm very familiar with it. And I don't know what caliber. I didn't read to see what caliber weapon it was, what caliber bullet, but I'm assuming that it was the fact that the guy shot through the screen door. I'm not sure what it was made of, whether it was plexi, whatever. That had to slow the bullet just enough that even though it hit him in his head, it didn't kill him. And then when he was down on the ground, he was shot again in his arm. The shooter, the homeowner, I guess, is an 84-year-old white man. Now, let's pause there for a second, because this one is going to get a little irritable. I get a little irritable about this story. All of my training, and I know states are different, but in all of my training, one of the things that I learned was that if someone, for instance, is on your property, and I think there was a case, I'm not sure if it's in New York or if it was what state it was, where there was a similar case where the homeowner was prosecuted and he was found guilty. You cannot shoot through your door to someone. I guess the only exception might be if they're shooting at you. But he shot through the door, this young man. And so that's the first problem, right? The door is closed. You shot through the door. Now he's claiming, his story is that this big, and he called him big, sizable black kid, was trying to yank open his door, and he said something to the kid, and he felt he felt he was in danger, that the kid was about to force himself into his house. Ralph Yard, the kid, is saying, I never even got to touch the door. I walked up to the door. Both people are in agreement that it was a see-through door, it was transparent, and he was shot. So either one could have happened, right? The point is, he gets the shooter was taken into custody for questioning and released. Now, before I get to the fact that he was eventually rearrested, I'm in New York. There is no way you're going to shoot someone through a door and get arrested for that. The person was actually shot in the hospital, and you're going to go down for questioning and go back home until they finish investigating. That's not going to happen. You're going to wait to that precinct or whatever for questioning, and when they're done with that question, the decision is going to be made to charge you or not. But nevertheless, I think there was enough noise around the nation. I didn't see the outrage again, but there's enough noise around the nation that the gentleman was rearrested and charged. So that's where it gets even funkier, right? So let's think about what he did. He shot through his door. He shot an unarmed man. Let's leave black out of it for a second. He shot an unarmed man. And then when the man was down, he shot again. The unarmed man. Okay, so after the first round, let's go past the first round. The man is down the ground. You hit him in the head. What's the second round for? At that point, you can ascertain that the threat is down if you perceived it to be a threat. So I think that is one of the reasons why prosecutors are looking at this as there was a racial factor here. White man, young black boy, because it doesn't make sense any other way. For you to carry out this egregious act and with such, the second shot kind of speaks to a certain amount of anger, hatred, or rage, right? So the strange thing is he gets charged. I forgot what his charges are now. I had it in my head all day, and now I'm speaking to you. I could look it up now, but I don't want to take my attention away from the camera. He gets charged, but what he does not get charged with, I think he got charged with something like reckless endangerment and something like that. He did not get charged with attempted murder. And I think there are many attorneys who take up the cases of people who are in need of proper representation. They're all saying, where is the charge of attempted murder? You shoot an unarmed person through a door and then you shoot them again when they're on the ground. That is attempted murder. Because even if, like I said, he wants to say, well, I'm 84 years old and this is a young kid and I can't defend myself. I'm not physically able. And I thought he was going to do some harm. He's on the ground, right? Even if all of what this man said turns out to be true, you now have someone at gunpoint that you can say, don't move, and call the police. But no, he shot him again. The kid Ralph Yard then got up and ran for help. He had to run to 3 houses before anyone would help him. What I read was, and I can't. This is what I read, so I can't attest to it. But apparently, when he got to the third house, they finally helped him. They made him lie down and put his hands out or something. But they made him, sort of put himself in a submissive position before they called for help. This just stinks of a neighborhood and a community that's filled with racism. How can you? I mean, this is a 16-year-old boy who, depending on the caliber, depending on how able-bodied the man was, could have turned out quite differently, right? That round that hit him in his head that, may have ricocheted off his skull, depending on the caliber and because of the glass door, plexi, or whatever, could have gone center mass to his heart and killed him. And we'd be talking about another minority kid, another black kid who is dead, and we're burying his parents are weeping and they're crying for justice. I do not hear Washington standing up, united again, and saying, this has to end. We're not talking about the gun argument now, right? We know that that's controversial and that's a nation that's divided. We're talking about shooting someone because of the color of their skin, whether it is you perceive them to be a threat because they're a minority, because of the color of their skin, and in this case, you sort of eliminate the threat, so to speak, by having them down on the ground, shot in the head, and you shoot them again. This stinks of racism. Even the prosecutors in that state say this stinks of racism. And these things affect me deeply because I never want to lose faith in who we are as a country, as a people, and the potential we have to be so much better. The potential we have to rewrite or write new chapters in history that actually show those who come after us the differences we made and how we changed the perception and the actions of humankind to be kinder to each other. Over the last, 6 years or whatever, there seems to be just a public display of racism and hatred. It's very obvious that with certain generations, it was deeply embedded. I want to give credit to things like Generation Z because I think they probably, at least in our lifetimes, represent what it seems to be the only glimpse of hope that for future generations to come, that this battle we face and this regurgitating evil within our society will be less or eradicated simply because the foolish, irreverent people who are bent on being racist would have passed on and their time on this planet will be over. But while we're here, we have a responsibility as human beings existing on the same planet to do our part to make life better, to do our part to recognize that just how we look at kids who are born handicapped or people who lose limbs or something at war or during life and their lives are changed forever, how we join together to help with different services to help them to walk again, to live a normal life. People who are subjected to systemic racism, to community racism, to the regurgitating belly of racism that we have in this society, their lives are not normal. Think about Ralph Yarl. He's back home. He got very lucky. But how will he look at life now? How do we tell Ralph that the next time you're in trouble, car broke down, someone is sick in your vehicle, whatever it is, and you need to pull over and ask for help, you need to keep going, keep driving, keep the person who's having the heart attack alive until you can get to someone who resembles you or someone or some hospital with a better hope of getting help, right? Because if you would think that as human beings, He should be able to flag down the next person in front of him, white, black, purple, green, yellow, I don't care what they are. And that human being will help them, because that's what we're supposed to do as human beings and a part of our coexistence on this planet. But how do we sell that to Ralph? When he thinks about his story, when he grows up and he has kids and he tells them about his life and his story, what do you tell your kids? Do you lie to your kids, or do you tell them the truth that daddy once got shot in the head and the arm because he made a mistake with an address and ended up paying the price because he's a person of color, because he was black? How do we change this narrative so that our history remains the same, but its existence fades, and the new lives that we create are filled more with humanity, love, caring, support, ensuring that we can enrich the lives of those around us and we can touch and reach as far as we can to help others. I often say that the price I pay to occupy a space on this earth is helping people. I started this podcast and it's been going strong for years now, I gotta say. I think I'm in my third year. But I did this because as I sought and I searched for ways to get a message out, to start a conversation, to help, I came across podcasting. I sometimes revisit my first episodes just to hear how nervous I was, just to hear how unprepared I was, just to hear how much I struggled through those episodes. And I compare them now to how I have a conversation with you, my supporters, my listeners, the people you share this with. I understand that it is a growth process, but it has become successful because it's part of who I am, and it's part of who I need to be and have to be, and it's part of who we all should be. We cannot exist on this planet alone. And despite what people who are racist may think, they can't exist alone either. We need each other. But we cannot continue this fear and have our youth so fearful. And every time they see someone that's not minority, they have to question whether they can ask for directions, whether they can say hello, whether they can stand next to them, whether they can bend down to pick up something and be with the fear of being accused of doing something wrong. In each race, creed, and color, there are good people and there are bad people. But the good people can't live a life that's a lie, a myth, when deep inside lives racist thoughts and at the core of their being. My hope is that the people we elected in Washington will stop their childish like squabbling, will stop the Republican-Democrat fight that seems to supersede any need for them to do anything to help us. And this is beyond racism, right? When you look at Washington, you're looking at the bills that they pass and the things that we need as human beings to live. We are punishing because they don't have the time to do the jobs we elected them for because they're too busy fighting over power. You look at the different states where they're making laws that are affecting women. Men are making laws that govern the bodies of women without women having a say. We look at states where efforts are made to help people in poverty and people go to court to stop it because then you'd actually be helping someone who needs it, and that messes with the gap, right? The socioeconomic gap of how much I'm rich and how I can look down on the others who are so poor. We look at all these programs that people talk about that they need to enact, but we don't see the help coming to the people. We just see these Congress sitting in their aloof seats and talking about trillion-dollar bills that do nothing for us. We are the ones who can make a difference. I keep saying that. For those of you who have not heard these stories, please go Google it. Google Ralph Yarl. Google sheriff in Oklahoma, McCurtain County. Read these stories. Get angry. Get upset. Get irritated. And then don't take it out in a violent way. Get motivated. Get motivated to come up with ideas and ways for us to make our voices heard louder. Get motivated that whether you take a pen and you start writing letters, or an email in your computer and you start overloading senators with letters and getting more and more people to join, to the point where they have to take notice because they don't know what the next step will be if they don't pay attention to us. Because the next time we have a protest, a peaceful protest, shut everything down. Make sure that they understand that regardless of what or who they think they are, they can't exist without us. This whole ignorance in the culture of our politicians, this purposeful effort to ignore what's going on in racism in this country and poverty in this country, and the fact that the equality that people of color should have is still so much out of reach. They fight to the Supreme Court about student loan forgiveness, $10,000 or $20,000 that they're saying will add up to billions or whatever, but it will mean so much in the lives of minorities who make up the largest populations of people in student loan debt. It's okay to go print money and send it to Ukraine. It's okay to take refugees we call in from Ukraine and set them up with medical and financial assistance and everything because they're being persecuted in their country. What about the people you're persecuting in your own country, the people who elected you? I'm going to keep sharing these messages. I'm going to keep asking you to join me and to share this podcast. And I'm hoping that I'm going to touch enough nerves that you're going to get to the point where you can't take it anymore, where you not only make sure you have to listen to this podcast and you have to engage in this conversation, but you have to become part of something that someone and some way make a difference. We have to do this. We owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our children. We owe it that racism goes back in the closet. I can't stop a human being from being racist, but I sure as heck can be a help to create a movement that is so embarrassing and has such consequences when you publicly exhibit your racism, that you got to tie it, lock it up, put it in a trunk, and lock it away and keep it within yourself. If you want to be silently racist within your home and bounce your head off a wall, that's your business. But we don't want to see it. We want to see peace. We want to see love. We want to see engagement. We want to see support. We want to see the greatest of who we were created to be. Humankind, who care for each other, who care about each other, and who make a difference in each other's lives. I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Hopefully next week with my topic will be something that I get to choose, and the topic that doesn't choose me because of the ignorance that's going on in our society. But we can't turn a blind eye. We can't keep saying things like, oh, what's the use? It's going to happen anyway. Because that's what they're counting on. Enough people say that, and yes, it's going to happen anyway. Because no one is held accountable. We had Tennessee I talked about last week with the blatant expulsion of 2 black men, and yet they can come up with votes for the 1 white woman who herself called the vote racist. Where's the outrage? Where's the George Floyd type responses? Peaceful but powerful. Where's the outrage that goes on night after night that says to Washington, you're gonna hear me, because if you don't, we'll make sure you're so miserable that you can't do your job unless you do the job we hired you to do. Come on, people. It's time for a change. And we have to be the ones who seize the opportunity of this time in our lives to make a difference. It's always a pleasure to be here on this podcast, to share my thoughts with you. If you agree, if you disagree, if you want to, whatever the case may be, reach out to me. My email address is podcast@247realtalk.net. You can see this, of course, on the YouTube channel. There's a website with all the episodes, and there's an audio version on Buzzsprout. Please look on your podcast app for 247 Real Talk, and you'll find it on just about every app that there is out there. Listen to it. Share the message with everyone you know, and invite them to become a part of something that I started years ago, but something that can define all of us and bring out the greatness in all of us. We have to be the ones to choose to craft our own destiny by not accepting and by making a change. Has been a pleasure. Until we talk again in another week, be safe, enjoy your weekend and your week and the weather that we're having as we go into spring. And please take care of yourselves and each other.